Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to take you back to memory lane as some of the weapons I will feature in this video are nostalgic and definitely gave a lot of Warframe players unforgettable moments while playing the game. To start with, I want to talk about the Aterax. This is the first broken weapon I have experienced in the game. Well, Skoliak is probably better for some when it comes to range, but Aterax is broken in the past because of the high range maiming strike slash paired with the infinite invisibility of Naramon's Shadow Step. It was so broken that every Warframe abilities are disregarded since you can just survive and kill with Aterax on hand and the Naramon focus supporting you. Sadly, it got nerfed to the ground and whips are close to unplayable right now. By the way, before we continue, I would humbly ask for your support by simply liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Also, we have new t-shirts in our merch shop. If you want to check it out later, then I have the link to our official shop in the video description below. Thank you so much for your support, and now let's get back to the guide. The second weapon that gave me great joy in this game is the Lesion. This is considered as a status king in Warframe in the past, and it's one of the best endgame melee weapons back then. Unlike Aterax, Lesion is still a good weapon right now. In fact, it's a great hybrid weapon now as you can add critical, even red crit numbers with abilities like Wrathful Advance. Then let's talk about the Zenistar. This is one of the best login rewards in the game as this weapon was stupidly broken when gas was also overpowered in the game. This was a perfect combo with Wukong's OG Cloudwalker. All you need to do was throw Zenistar's disc with gas element, then activate Cloudwalker, and the gas damage becomes insane when you are invisible and you can just camp in one spot in survival runs. Also, it's stupidly broken with OG Sarin. Back then we can use Sarin's Molt to spread viral, and Zenistar's disc can constantly hit Molt to spread viral in a wide area. It's like an automatic viral nuker setup and it was fine while it lasted. Soma Prime is also on the list. Honestly, this is not the most powerful gun in the game even back then, but it's really fun to shred enemies with this automatic rifle. It's also a cool looking primary weapon that everyone enjoys to play. Right now, this gun can red crit, but sadly, it gets outclassed by other newer primary weapons. Also, I would like to include on this list Ambrex. This weapon was my first progression gun. Once I got it from the dojo, there was no putting it down, especially when I got Chroma. Back in the days, Chroma can deal millions of damage with any guns, including the Ambrex, as long as you mod it towards elemental damage. The chaining effect of this Corpus gun is just great for clearing mobs, and I did end up using this gun also for defeating bosses in normal star chart while using Chroma. I was so fixated with Ambrex that I was late to recognize that Ignis Raid also exists in the game, and it's by far the easiest and most reliable weapon for progression in the game. I did try Ignis Raid for a couple of months and ended up loving the gun when it comes to progression. However, I ended up shifting back to Ambrex once I got a Riven for it in one of my sortie runs. Also, I would like to mention Tigris Prime in this video. Back then, this duplex shotgun is the best single target gun in the game. It simply just obliterates even 100 plus enemies in the past, and mind you, the steel pot enemies now are not as bullet sponge as enemies before, and the Tigris Prime don't care how much EHP Corrupted Heavy Gunner have. The gun is still a beast, but players don't care about it as it's all about kill speed and nuking right now. Then, we also have those times where players are so fixated with Eidolon Hunts, and the Lanka and Rubico Prime snipers were loved by many. Lanka was the first best Eidolon hunting sniper for me, but before that, this sniper was already used in other shenanigans. It was one of Mag's weapon of choice, so she can obliterate all those enemies that are inside her magnetized bubble. However, the sniper lost its glory when Rubico Prime arrived. The sniper was a fan favorite right away as it can deal decent damage to the Eidolons even without any expensive Riven mods. I also remember those times when Lanka and Rubico Prime Rivens are crazy expensive, but now, snipers in the game are sometimes neglected by Warframe players. Next, we have the Fulmin, which is the signature weapon of Wisp. I know some of you don't care about this gun, but it's a game changer for me since this weapon is the first that has effective alternate firing mode. I was having tons of fun shredding enemies with its fully automatic mode and was very happy on how good it is in taking down enemies with its semi-automatic mode. However, Hulmin is not the first weapon that has two firing mode. Back then, the Tsar was dominating the endgame levels of the game. Its barrage mode deals massive critical hits to enemies, while its cluster bomb is paired with Oberon's armor stripping to kill level cap enemies easily. Mind you, there was no shield gating back then, and the only immortal Warframes are Wukong and Nidus, so it took some skills and patience to survive endgame survival runs. The combination of Tsar and armor stripping was very powerful in the past, but now it's like a common thing that you do to get millions or billions of damage. Honestly, I really did not enjoy Tsar back then despite being meta, since the cluster bomb has self-damage. I did enjoy the Kuva variant as it got better stats, and this was the time when there's no self-damage anymore and only knockdowns. Also, this was the era of Prime Sure-Footed, and the Kuva Tsar was part of the most insane meta in the game called the Brain Dead nuking. I say this because during the nuke meta, we have other nuking weapons like the Kuva Brahma. Back then, this weapon clears room like it's just another day in the office. It got stupidly broken when the galvanized mods arrived, and it worked with the nuke weapons in the game. There was no ammo limitation back then, and you will always have ammunition, especially if you are using the Carrier Sentinel with its ammo case. The best part is, no self-damage and knockdowns are negated by Prime Sure-Footed. So obviously, all you need to do is aim, shoot, then rinse and repeat the process. But before the Kuva Brahma nuke, there was a more broken nuking setup that allows you to deal damage cap numbers every time. And this is by using a Zo with Exodia Contagion and pairing it with Warframes like Wukong and Chroma. Both Warframes soon got a rework, and it removed Wukong's Iron Jab plus its augment that creates crazy damage numbers with the Exodia Contagion setup. They also removed the double dipping buff mechanic on Chroma's Fury buff, which also nerfed the synergy. The combo was replicated with Whiz and Eclipse as a Subsume ability, but it got nerfed again. Right now, you can still do 2 billion damage with Sauce, but it requires a lot of things. And back then, damage cap was only another number puking in your screen. I also want to include Glaive Prime in this video. This is the most popular Prime weapon in the game, not just because it got vaulted for so long, but it's also one of the best powerful thrown melee weapon in the game that can nuke a crowd with AoE slash and bleed damage. The weapon's fame got toned down a little though when Sores arrived on the scene, and this Corpus Glaive is now a fan favorite, especially that it pairs well with a melee influence setup against single targets right now. Also, there was a time when Warframe players got crazy with the Redeemer Prime. This is a gun blade that has long range attacks, and because it's a melee also, it doesn't require any ammunition to shoot. The best part is, the damage of Redeemer Prime is insane that it can melt enemies easily. I remember those times when Riven mods for this melee was crazy high, and in public, you will see everyone wielding a Redeemer Prime. There was a time also that players got insane with hand cannons, especially the Shadow. The sentient gun has unlimited ammunition, and you commonly can see this gun being used by players during Prime Parts farming. In most cases, the gun is enough for a 1-hour run in Prime Parts farming with Wiz Molt ability in survival runs. The fire rate buff makes the gun better, and when the fire rate buff from Void hits, the Shadow becomes really fun to play with. Also, there's the Kuva Nuker that revive beam weapons. During release, this secondary is very strong, and it can hit a lot of enemies compared to what it can do now. Kuva Nuker is still good as it's one of the gun that has the highest status chance, and you can proc a lot of elements with this gun. The Kuva Nuker is game changing not only because of this, but also because it uplifted the beam weapons. Nuke meta is very powerful back then, but beam weapons became a great alternative for killing multiple enemies at once. In short, it became the pioneer for meta weapons right now, like the Incarnon Torrid. I know there are many beam weapons that came out before Kuva Nuker, but the secondary just hits different. And right now, we have the Incarnon Torrid, which is a universally good primary. one of the best meta weapons in the game that has enough killing speed and can be used in almost any situation. The best part is, it's very ammo efficient because after hitting enemies and charging the Incarnon form with its normal shot, you can then use its beam mechanic to kill. But before we even get to this new variant of Incarnons, we have the OG ceremonial Incarnon weapons, and the most iconic are probably Latham and Fenmore. These two guns created a new meta and what I often called as the negative crit meta. We all love red crits in our builds, but these two weapons love to have no crit at all, so these can proc their exclusive perk that grants 2000 bonus damage to non-critical hits. Because of this, both guns can deal insane damage to almost everything in the game, including steel path bosses. These two weapons got better when galvanized status mods were added in the game, and when paired with Sata's Whisper, these two guns go ballistic and can shred everything easily. Finally, we are in a new era right now, and it's an era where hammers can nuke enemies with slam attacks. The best hammers so far are the Duviri variant called Sampotes and the Corpus nerf hammer called Arca-Titron. The Sampotes pairs well with the melee affliction and any damage over time elements, preferably heat or toxin. This hammer has a special perk that works well with the melee affliction arcane, allowing your element to proc multiple times within a wide area to kill enemies. On the other hand, despite the many nerf, Arca-Titron is still a top tier nuke hammer because of melee influence. It may not reach 2 billion damage with a very simple setup right now, but the damage still obliterates enemies even at steel path levels. And by the way, adding Nira mod set on these hammers will eventually increase their slamming potential. So that's all about it. If you want to add your favorite weapon on the mix, then feel free to comment it down below and tell us why you love the weapons. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again in our next video. Quad Leader signing off.